Do you ever wonder how does this whole idea of food chain, food web, how the energy is being transferred as different organisms are eating? This is a topic to cover in my science class. And every so often, students get very confused about where things are going and about vocabulary. So let's see if we can answer your key questions. Throughout this video, if you have any clarification questions, put them in the comments below. I'm here to answer your questions. So let's see. First of all, if you have an ecosystem, so let's see, we often have some ground areas. I'm going to give a little pond right here, and as you could see, this is the reason why I am in science and not an arts major. We have little fish. Oops, the mouth is at the bottom usually. There you go. On land, we have trees like this. And I realized this morning that I do not have a green marker. So all our vegetation will be purple today. There we go. We have little brushes and we have some grass. Perfect. So the first thing we need to think about when we have either an aquatic ecosystem or a terrestrial ecosystem is that we have small organisms. So let's see where they are. So here at the bottom, I have, for example, little critters walking around. So they're insects, crawlies, it could be grasshoppers. We also have in trees, we have sometimes little worms that are there. We also have, let's put a mosquito just for fun. So a mosquito right here, and let's do a red butterfly. I think that would be quite good like this. So here's a few things. So in an ecosystem, we have what we call several types of organisms. We have the plants. Plants are important because they are at the base of our food intake for us as humans, but for all the organisms in ecosystems. In order to be able to grow, the key energy source is our sun. If there's no sun, we would not have plants. If there was no plants, we would not be able to support any organisms, and us humans that we like to eat, we would not be able to live. So here we have little insects, butterflies, and so on. We have let's see if we can do them in blue, why not? We have organisms that do eat plants. So here I'm going to put a little mouse. So here I have a little mouse like this with a little tail. A little mouse will be able to eat some grass, some nuts. So let's see, trees here would have some nuts as well. That's one of them. Where else? We could also have a bunny. These are easy for me to draw. One like this, and then we have these. Yes, this I can handle. Perfect. So here we have a little mouse, little rabbits that are eating plants. We call them herbivores. So in some ways, they are part of a group that we call consumers, because consumers are eating other organisms. So if we look at vocabulary, the first group are called producers. We can this here. So producers are plants, anything that uses the sun to grow. Then we have consumers. Consumers like this. Consumers will eat producers. Now, consumers, there's a few of them. So some of them could be considered herbivores, like our rabbit and our little mouse. But some of the consumers can also be larger animals. So larger animal would be, so I can do, let's see if I can make this work. We have little, so this is supposed to be a fox. Often they are in the environment. I'm going to also do a little snakes. So snakes also, they like to live here like this. We need to have a neck and a little tongue going this way. So here I have here my snake. And we also have, for example, some larger birds. So like this. And these birds usually, because they are carnivores, they will be eating larger. This looks like a phoenix more than a hawk. But anyway, so here we have a variety of organisms. As I mentioned, producers, they get the energy from the sun, and consumers that would get energy. So the fox would eat rabbits, for example, could eat little grass snakes as well. We have the hawk that would eat the snakes, who would eat the mouse here. We also have the snake that would eat possibly some eggs of a bird, for example. So everything works together. So the first piece of information we're going to talk about today will be what is a food chain. So I'm going to have here food chain. So the food chain, what is interesting is that we have an organism. So let's see if I can take, how we're going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to get some plants that are eaten by the mouse, and the mouse is eaten by the snake, and the snake is eaten by the hawk. This is what we called a food chain. It is one organism after the other in one straight line. So it's important to consider because it allows us to simplify what is happening in an environment. So here we have producers. We also have consumers, which is the mouse, but we also have a snake who consume the mouse, carnivores, and we have here hawk consuming the snake, consuming the mouse, and consuming the plants. So let's see if we can organize some of these to look at more information. So one thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a pyramid of number. A pyramid of number is, for example, if I have here 1,000 blades of grass. The idea here is that, as you can see, this is one side of a pyramid. So grass is amazing, but we have our mouse right here. 1,000 blades of grass cannot feed 1,000 mouse. Might be able to feed 100 of them. 1,000 plants to feed 100 mouse. Now, 100 mouse will not be able to feed 100 snakes. Maybe you might be able to feed 10 snakes. And you would not, from 10 snakes, we cannot feed here 10 hawk. We might be able to do one hawk like this. And as you can see, we have the numbers that are changing. I'm going from 1,000 to 100 to 10 to 1. So this is what we call a pyramid of numbers. We need a large quantity of food to sustain a much smaller group of organisms, which sustains a smaller group of organisms, which sustain a much smaller group as well. This can also be, we can also use other ways. For example, we can use biomass. How would that work? We could say, well, if I have 1,000 kilograms of plants, I'll be able to maintain about 100 kilograms of mouse. And here I would have 10 kilograms of snake. And here at the top here, 1 kilogram of hawk. So biomass is something to look into. We can also, depending who you work with and who you work for, you can have pyramid of energy as well. So for example, you could have here 1,000 calories, which will be able to maintain 100 calories here. For the mouse, which will be able to maintain 10 calories for the snake and only 1 calorie for the hawk. So as you can see, there's a loss of available energy. So the transfer of energy is decreasing every time we change level. And if you can see, so we have about 10% of the available energy. So some of you will say, well, where's that energy going? That's a good question. The energy is going, so if you think of a mouse will live for several months to several years. So that means that during the life of that mouse, the mouse will eat food, but because the mouse is living, the mouse will maintain its body, will grow its body, will reproduce, but will also produce heat all of its life. So all of these activities inside the body of the mouse takes 90% of the energy. So that means that there's only 10% available for the level above, 10% to the level above. Now I'm saying that as a round number for 10%. It might vary between 8 and 12 or 15%, but it's a good rule of thumb. So that's quite nice. So here sometimes, so let's talk about another word that is interesting, which is the trophic level. Trophic levels here, for one, they're the producers. The first trophic level is when we have producers, they get the energy from the sun. The second trophic level, they're what we call the primary consumers. And then if you go up one level, we end up with the third trophic level, which are secondary consumers. And if you go up here, you end up with the fourth trophic level, which is the third level, or tertiary. So the third is tertiary. Oh, that's good. Well, I need to look into that. Tertiary consumer. So what is interesting is you notice that as we are going up in the trophic levels, we have less and less organisms that can be supported. So that means that if you want to have 1,000 hawks, you would need 10,000 of the snake, 100,000 of the mouse, and then here you'll need, let's say, 1,000,000 of the grass, of the blades of grass. So this is all something to look into. So if you think of the world population, for example, we have reached more than 8 billion people. You cannot feed everybody here at the tertiary consumer level for all humans. It's impossible. We will not be able to have enough food energy for them. However, often humans may eat either plant-based food or herbivores, and therefore never going at the top here. So we try to stay, if we can stay lower than the third trophic levels, that's a good thing. Because keeping in mind that when we have toxins that are accumulated in the food chain, toxins gets more and more concentrated as we get to the top part of the food chain. So that's something that we need to be careful. So these are a lot of different words today that we've talked about so far, but we have not talked about what? You're right. We have not talked about what is a food web. So let's see if we can answer that one. So food web. Now, a food web is very similar to a food chain, but it's much more complex. So let's see. When we have here the mouse that is eating here blades of grass, we also have to consider that we have the mouse that will also eat nuts or seeds that are from a tree or little fruits in the plants here. So here we have this goes to the mouse, and this also goes to the mouse here. Now, interestingly enough, we also can consider that when we think of the snake here, the snake can eat some small insect, can eat some small fish as well, like this. So here you can see that we have a variety of food that one organism can eat. Same thing with our rabbit here. The rabbit would eat our grass, would eat other plants that are available. Now, as we go up here, we have here the snakes that are eating these. Perfect. The fox here would eat what? The fox would be more than happy to eat little rabbit if it's available, little mouse if it's available, a snake if it's available. For the same way a hawk might be able to eat a rabbit, will be able to eat the mouse, and so on. So when you have a food web, it's the idea here that a variety of organisms are eating a variety of organisms. And that's why it's called a web. So think of a spider web, and there's interconnection right here. What's interesting is that this allows for a much more balanced ecosystem. Because if it happens that the mouse population was to decrease completely, that will take away a food source and would put pressure to all the other animals to be able to feed the higher trophic level organisms, to a point where the hawk may say, well, there's not enough food here, and they have two options: either die out or have to move somewhere else. It's easy for the hawks, but if you think of insects, like crawling insects, they cannot move as fast or as far as other animals. So here, I think these are excellent ways to look into this. So I'm going to put it here. So this is basically the whole difference between a food chain and a food web, including some more information. I talked about the trophic levels and how we can put numbers on the food chains, even food webs sometimes, with the pyramids. These, I hope, will help you in your class. If you have any questions, clarification questions, put them in the comments below. Otherwise, I'm going to put here a link to a video I did not too long ago on ecosystems, and I'll see you there.